In this video, I want to show you some capital budgeting functions, net present value, NPV, which has got a flaw in it, IRR, and modified IRR. So first, we just pick a discount rate of 10%, put it in blue and bold so I know it's an input. For the years, let's go from year 0 to year 10. So highlight 0 and 1. Let the white cross here go to the bottom right-hand corner. The white cross becomes a black cross. Press the left mouse button, drag it across. Excel picks up the pattern that I'm counting by 1 and goes automatically to 10. Let's say the initial cash flow is $100,000 and say the cash flow in year 1 is $21,000, and then we just add $1,000 every year for no particular reason. But you see, if I do that, press F2 here, and you can see it's just copying the cell before it and adding $1,000. So the present value I can do one of two ways. I can do by the formula way or the function way. So the formula equal the future value divided by, open parenthesis, 1 plus the interest rate. Press F4 to lock it down. If you press F4 multiple times, it toggles through to locking down the row, the column, neither or both. And I'm going to lock down both. Raise it to that power. Then I can copy this over. And when I copy something over, I like to check and make sure I've done that correctly. So we randomly pick one of these cells where I've copied to, press F2. You can see the color coding. It did copy the year moved over, the future value moved over, but the rate stayed the same, exactly what I wanted to do. Just put outline around that. And now net present value. So net present value mathematically, and this is why you need to understand not just the function, but understand the math behind what you're trying to do, is the sum of the present value. So alt equal, I want to sum that up, and alt equal, Excel knows, hey, he wants to sum. Let me take a guess at what, and it guessed wrong. So what I'll do is I'll move with the arrow keys to the first cell I want to sum, and then press period. And now I can just move it over with the arrow key and have the right answer. Or, so alt equal, rather than moving with the arrow key, press period, and then holding down Control, Shift, and the right arrow key goes to the very end, hit enter. That's the net present value. I use the net present value function, so let's call it NPV func. There's going to be a flaw in it, and I guess Excel, when they first did this, Microsoft did it wrong and they never corrected it for whatever reason. But you need to be aware of this. So if I do equal NPV, and the way I like to put formulas in general, again, the first time you ever do it, I may want to do alt and then M for formula and then F for insert function look. But if I already know the formula, the function, if I already know what it is, I just type equal N P, go with down arrow key, tab. First give me the rate, excuse me, the rate, period. So I had to clear my voice there a little bit. The rate, and then I want to highlight the values. So highlight the values, period, Control Shift over. And I don't need to do the last parenthesis, that's fine, just hit enter. Actually, there we go, just hit enter, and it gives me a different answer. Well, why is that? So if I press F2, here's the problem. Net present value assumes the first cash flow comes 1 year from today. That's its base assumption. The cash flow, the first cash flow comes 1 year from today. So if I move this over, whoops, wrong thing. So if I take this and move that over and get those 10 cash flows, that's the result. But what does that look like? This is the present value of the future cash flows. So it's not really the net present value. It's the present value of a bunch of future cash flows. So I would then need to subtract, actually not subtract, add the negative original cash flow, and I have net present value with a function. So big difference there. You may originally think that you should highlight for net present value all the cash flows starting in year 0, but you don't. You start in year 1. What makes it even a little bit more confusing is doing internal rate of return. So IRR for internal rate of return equal IRR, and then you would think that would do it the same way as net present value, maybe where we start in year 1, but you start in year 0, period, Control Shift over, enter. And then I want to put this in percent, so Control Shift the percent key, and I can get that in percentage. I'll add a couple of decimals. So that's my internal rate of return, 20.25%. Did I get that right? Let me say equal. If my discount rate is 20.25, my net present value should be 0, and it is. So that IRR is correct. So the IRR is 20.25%. And again, you're using the cash flow starting in year 0 to year 10, which is unlike the way you do net present value. The next one, which is important, I'll put it right here, is the modified. Let's call it mod IRR for modified IRR, which the basic assumption, you may not have gotten to this yet in a finance class, is I'm reinvesting these cash flows at 20.25%, which is a bad assumption. So I can do equal M IRR, go all the way down to here. And again, this is, do you think it's faster when I'm doing this to type equal MIR and tab, or type MI and go down, whichever one's quicker to you. The values, I go up here, get these values, period, Control Shift over, and I have the next one, which I forgot. I have to have a financing rate, which is going to be my 10%, and my reinvestment rate, which I'll call that 10%, and enter. So this gives me, oops, did that the wrong thing, Control Z to undo that, Control Shift percent, put that in percentage. So my modified internal rate of return is 14.7%. If I do this, if I change this reinvestment rate to there, I get the same. So what modified internal rate of return is doing is to show me the cash flows first, then show me your financing rate, and then show me your reinvestment rate. And well, I'll let you in the finance class get more detail on that, but that's what modified internal rate of return does. And if that reinvestment rate is the same as your financing rate, there you go. It's going to be a slightly different number. So next we would have a function called XNPV and XIRR. The difference here is, rather than having cash flows like this, they would have actual days. So I'm going to take this, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Instead of having a day, instead of having times 0, I'm going to say 9-23-17. See that 43,000? That 43,000 is actually the number of days since 1900. So I'm going to go to Format, Number, Date. Here's a shortcut for that, but we'll deal with that later. So then I'm just going to add a year, so I get equal to this. Well, I could do the following. I could say 23 dash, actually, let me change this formatting to something I like a little bit better. Format cells. You'd say this is equal to 9-23-18. Take these, copy them across like that. Here are my cash flows, and then I'm going to get the XNPV. And I'll show you one thing here with that in a second. X net present value and equal XNPV, the rate, and then give me the values, so those values, and then give me the dates, give me these dates, and enter. And that looks pretty far off, doesn't it? So what if we do like this? And this is a lot closer to the original one. So here's why, again, net present value and X net present value can be very confusing. Net present value, I take the future cash flows and then I have to subtract the initial cash flow. For X net present value, because it depends on what date they start, I show you the whole cash flow range. But look, it's still off. It's still not exact. So why is that not exact? So let's put the present value in right here and see what's going on. Well, if I have equal the future value divided by 1 plus the interest rate, F4, raised to the power this year minus that year. This is a little confusing, I know. Divided by 365. Gonna make sure I get all my parentheses set up just right. Copy this across. MPV, alt equal, period, control shift over. So that matches up. But the problem is these are not all 365 days apart. Look at, I'm going to put these in the same format. Those cash flows are the same. Those cash flows are the same. This is where it changes because there's a leap year. So because there's a leap year, actually that should be 9-22-20. And that matches up. So this should be 9-22-21, etc. So it's saying there are 360. It's giving you the X NPV is counting the number of days. So it's doing this, it's saying what's the number of days from here to here. It's 365, and then it's dividing that by 365, so equal this divided by 365, and raising it to that power. So in this case, that's 1, that's 1. But if I copy this across, here we have not, well, let me put this back to 923. 9-23-20, 9-23-21. We have 366 days here. So look, we're off. We're not exactly, it's not exactly 3, 4, 5, 6 periods. So that's going to throw you off a little bit. So, and the same thing comes in, by the way, with XIRR. So not to make this go any longer than it has to. The values, again, period, control shift over, comma, the dates, period, control shift over, enter, control shift parenthesis to give me more, give a percentage form. You can see the XIRR is not the same thing as the IRR. So the takeaway from you, the most important one, is the net present value function maybe not exactly what you think it is. The second, IRR and modified IRR work beautifully the way you expect them to. The third, if you're doing the XNPV and the XIRR, it's because you got particular dates. So you're kind of into the real world and out of the classroom where everything comes in exactly 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, and they're coming on specific dates. But then the day count is going to be a 365-day day count, and you can have some difficulties with leap year, which is beyond the scope of this video. So, well, hopefully it's not too confusing, but can help you out, I hope.